Since 1976, SDState has hosted the Great Plains Writers Conference. The English department brings writers and readers together to talk about literature and how to make it accessible to all. Stephen Wingate is an associate professor in the English department. He is here today to speak about the conference, his latest book, and English at SDState. Thanks for being here today. Tell me a little bit about the English department here at SDState. I know you're associate professor. Tell me about the department and the people that are in it.
We offer a bachelor's in English with concentrations in literature, writing, and English education. We also offer a master's degree as well, which allows students to do either critical or creative work. So we've had some very interesting thesis projects come out of that. And we often send people on to PhD programs or MFA programs from our graduate program.
Very cool. And you talked about creative literature a little bit. That's really your niche. That's what you teach here at SDSU, right?
That's my thing. I mostly teach fiction, screenwriting, some experimental forms, digital media, as well as introductory creative writing, which is fun because that's when we catch our students and kind of light the fire under them. And a lot of our introductory students have never really thought about becoming writers or trying to become writers. They just have this idea in their head that, well, maybe I should try it. And they take a class and they realize, wow, I actually really enjoy this, and this is something I want to do with my time and my energy. So it's really fun to watch students get the bug.
Is it very often that you find students, when they write for class, that they end up publishing it somewhere?
Not that often as undergrads. Oakwood is one of the venues that students will publish at here at SDSU, which I suspect we'll get to a little bit later. But there are many students I know who go out and look for opportunities beyond SDSU to publish. There are many undergraduate literary magazines throughout the country, and when I find a student who's really interested in publishing as opposed to just writing, I try to point them to some of these listservs that they can get on so they can find out about all these opportunities for undergraduate writers. There are a large number of magazines in the country that are looking specifically for undergraduate writers. And it's a great way to get yourself started in the world of publishing and being a writer.
We talked about Oakwood. Oakwood is SDSU's literary magazine, and you play a part in that. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how students are involved in that?
It started in 1975. David Allen Evans, who was Poet Laureate of South Dakota, and Chuck Woodard, who recently retired from SDSU English, were very involved in the beginnings of that. We're really proud to have a college literary magazine that's been running for over 40 years. It's kind of unusual that many of them come and go. Recently, what I've been doing with Oakwood is moving it away from simply a student publication and more towards a publication that actually represents the entire northern Great Plains region. So we're taking work from people in Minnesota, in Montana, in North Dakota, all these states that adjoin South Dakota, and making it something more of a regional publication that sort of gives it a little bit more weight than a student-only publication would have. We still are publishing a lot of SDSU students, and we're committed to that. But it's actually a little harder for them to get in now. So when they get into Oakwood, that's really saying something for them, more than it might have been a few years ago when we were a student-only magazine.
So if people are looking to have their work published in Oakwood, how would they go about that?
Every December, we put out a call for submissions that goes out throughout the region and at SDSU. So you can go search for SDSU Oakwood or Oakwood Literary Magazine and find your way to our site and our submission guidelines. And usually between December and late January or early February, we will be accepting submissions for the annual issue, which will come out in print in April. And it's a really nice looking print magazine. It's 8.5 by 11. It's color, really nice paper. So people who are in it are usually really happy to be in it because it looks very good. We've also started working with the library, with Briggs, to archive past issues and also make that available electronically.
So not only is the English department looking at expanding Oakwood's audience to the Northern Great Plains, but the Great Plains Writers Conference held here at SDSU, which you have involvement with, is looking to do the same thing. Can you tell me a little bit about the conference and what people can expect from it?
Absolutely. The conference started about the same time as Oakwood, so there was a lot of energy happening there. And right now my colleague, Dr. Christine Stewart, who is the poet and nonfiction person, my counterpart at SDSU, is running the conference, and she has recently kind of reinvented it as something that it kind of used to be long time ago, which is a gathering space for writers of the region to talk about their craft and for people to look at each other's manuscripts and things like that. It's really a get-together. So that combined with Oakwood, we're really trying to build some kind of regional presence and make sure that SDSU is at or near the center of it.
So what are some things that you guys do at the Great Plains Writers Conference?
Well, we have a fair amount of readings. We have workshops. Those are kind of the two big things. So we'll get an author in and they'll, for instance, read from their new book and also run a workshop on the craft. And those are kind of the big things. There's also a lot of socializing, a lot of people getting to know each other because writers are sort of their own species and they really enjoy the opportunity to hang around with other writers. All of the readings at the Great Plains Writers Conference are free and open to the public. We ask that people register, and also there is a fee for the workshops. You can find out all about that at the Great Plains Writers Conference website, which is simply greatplainswritersconference.com. It's fairly easy to remember.
One thing that you'll find on the website is the schedule for the conference, and the first thing at the top of the list is going to be you presenting, right?
That's me, Friday, 7 o'clock, April 12th.
And what are you going to be presenting?
I'm going to be reading from my novel, which was just published by the University of Nebraska Press as part of its Flyover Fiction series, which is dedicated to the writing of the Great Plains, which is where I grew up and where I live now. The novel is called Of Fathers and Fire, and it is set in 1980. Right before the Reagan presidency, where we have hostages in Iran, very kind of politically charged time that's quite similar to now. Its protagonist is a 17-year-old young man whose mother has been lying to him for years about who his father is and saying, your father's a sax player from New York City who loved me and left me. But it turns out that his dad is actually an ex-con who just spent 16 years in the Nebraska State Penitentiary and is now out looking for his son. So all sorts of fireworks ensue.
So last year at the conference, you actually read the first chapter of Fathers and Fire.
The title is actually Of Fathers and Fire. It's a little bit like John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, so a little shout out to John Steinbeck in my title.
The people who attended the conference got to listen to you read the first chapter, so it's kind of like you got to come back, you got to keep listening to the book.
Well, I'm not going to read the entire book, but I'll definitely read something new that hasn't been read here before, that's for sure. And we'll also have a bunch of other readings here. We have the current Poet Laureate of South Dakota, Leanne Rorapah, who teaches at the University of South Dakota. She'll be doing a reading on Saturday night. Jim Reese, who teaches at Mount Marty College, is coming in to do a reading and a workshop. And Adrian Custers, who's from Nebraska, is going to be doing the same kind of thing. So we're having the thing that we like to do, just bring a bunch of writers together and bring a bunch of aspiring writers together as well.
And share a little bit of your expertise.
As much expertise as we can. You know, writers like to do that. We all steal from each other, and we encourage active stealing, as long as you're not, plagiarizing. But the stealing of the techniques, of the approaches to the craft, I think that's something that all writers like to do. Just a fairly open, sharing environment. The Oakwood Launch is going to be happening on Saturday, April 13th. So the writers who are in Oakwood, those students who are involved in it will be there. And I've seen the cover. It looks fantastic. It's always a good-looking magazine. And it's going to be great this year, too. Dr. Christine Stewart, who's my counterpart in English, is actually running Oakwood this year because I'm officially on sabbatical as I go through the mad rush of getting this novel out to the world.
If people want to read Of Fathers and Fire, where can they find your book?
It'll be on sale during the reading and also at the bookstore afterwards. And you can pretty much get it anywhere books are sold. You can go Amazon if you're that type of person, go directly to University of Nebraska Press, Barnes & Noble. It'll be out there. Some other things that are happening in the English department. We have every year what we call the Norgren and Witherington Prizes, which are given out to middle school and high school students all around the state. So we have hundreds and hundreds of submissions from aspiring young writers, and we coordinate the competition, and they get to do a reading and they get to be involved. And they have a chapbook that's produced with all the winning work, and that's a really wonderful thing that we do here at SDSU to kind of seed, the next generation of writers. We're also exploring an online MA program to supplement our existing MA program. So stay tuned for news about that. There's this crazy myth out there that if you're a humanities major, you're doomed to a life of working at Starbucks, and it's just so completely not true. I have students who are working in corporate communications and technical writing, and they're out there doing great. It's up to the student and what the student wants to do. The major is not going to do anything for you if you're not willing to hustle. So if you're thinking about becoming an English major, talk to one of us and talk to us about your career prospects once you're out of school, because it's way beyond Starbucks.
Catch Stephen Wingate's reading at the Great Plains Writers Conference held Friday, April 12th through Sunday, April 14th at the University Student Union here at SDState. This is Between Classes. Thanks for listening.